need the basic understanding. Okay. So carbon credit done, carbon, what else we have done? Carbon offsetting, what else? Carbon leakage we have done, anything else? Carbon leakage and what? Okay, what is green grabbing? Okay, have I given the word greenwashing also? Have I given that too? Greenwashing. This was a question which came in UPSC. Greenwashing, what is that? Yes, they try to disguise themselves as they are carbon friendly and they are trying to mitigate the climate change through their products. And then they implicitly force you to buy their products. Why? Because they try to portray that you are also one of those people who are very concerned for the nature, like just like them. So this is called greenwashing, and you'll be surprised to know the country which is actually doing the maximum greenwashing is USA and European countries. And from the European countries, you have Germany and Italy. They are the one who are doing what? They are the one who are doing the greenwashing. You'll be surprised to know that. And apart from that, there is a country. So why are these countries who are trying to be the leader when it comes to climate change? If you have seen EU, you will see them at the forefront whenever there are the talks of the climate change happening or the COP is taking place. They are at the forefront to fight, to put their point, to assess the different detrimental effects of what we are doing in a particular country. So why these countries are also topping the list? What is the reason for that? Why they top the list? Are they trying to portray on one side? Don't you think it's a kind of a conflict of two images? If on one side they are trying to portray that we are the one who is saving the planet, on the other side you are doing greenwashing. And by the way, there is a new word which has come, blue washing. In the current affairs, I was just going through that and I heard about this word called blue washing. What is that? Again, blue washing is trying to show yourself as if socially you are impacting. Socially, you are making a lot of impact through your products or through your services. So this is called as blue washing. A lot of people will mistake it as something related to oceans, but yes. So greenwashing is what? Trying to disguise yourself as a people, as a company, as an organization who's trying to mitigate the changes in the climate, right? I'll do that. Okay. So the point is, why greenwashing? And now what measures they have taken? These people have tried to bring in a lot of changes now. What sort of changes they're trying? For example, recently there was a city, right? The country name is, city name is Genome. No, not Genome, it's, I think, Genoa. No, Genoa. So this is a city in basically Italy. The first city which tried to ban all the fossil fuel ads was Florence. The countries which are also trying to ban the fossil fuel ads are Germany, France, etc. But why? Why these, on one side, they are trying to portray themselves as the one who is taking the most innovative solutions, they're bringing out the most innovative methods in order to ban the fossil fuels. So now it's being completely banned to put any sort of billboards, any sort of hoardings, or any sort of advertisement also in any form. If you are trying to bring it into the public, then there is going to be a lot of penalties on those organization or maybe company. Okay? So on one side, you are trying to portray yourself as somebody who is banning it. On other side, you are doing the opposite. So greenwashing, blue washing, the country who has the maximum record of this is the Western countries, Western nations. Right? Okay, what else? Anything you have read, heard about, any new thing? Have you gone through COP 30? Conference of Parties 30? नहीं देखा? ठीक है. We'll also have a discussion. First हम पहले discuss करेंगे important COP, COP 3, COP 5, COP 15. All of this will be discussed first, so then you can get a hang of it, that what are the COPs, what happens in the COP. It's just a meeting of the members which is happening place. Then we'll do the international organization, international intergovernmental bodies wherein they have tried to mitigate the climate change. For example, UNFCCC, United Nations Framework of Climate Change. So this is doing what? They are keeping the meetings after a particular period of time. And these meetings, we call it as with the name of COP. Conference means meeting of parties. Parties means members. And then the year, etc. And then the number of the parties. Hence, you are writing the name of that. Okay? So conference of parties are written over there. Right? Some of the very famous conference of parties, in fact, they have been a landmark, are the Paris Agreement. Right? This is why Paris Agreement has been one of the major and significant meeting that has happened, wherein we have taken the NDC, which is nationally determined contributions. क्या है ये national determined contribution? Simplify करते हैं. National determined contribution होता है जब आप एक long term और short term goal लेते हैं for a country, that you have to stop all these greenhouse gas emissions, etc. You have to bring in the alternatives for that. For example, if your country is fully dependent on the thermal power plant, or they're fully dependent on other fossil fuels, then definitely they have to minimize it up to the level of 50% or up to the level of 40%, right? So this is what they are taking. They are quantifying it now, so that they can also have the metric to check that this is the goal that they have taken and this is what they have achieved. For example, in the case, yes, for example, in the case of India, that's bad for health. If it diet, but then also it's bad. That is called greenwashing. This thing, almost a part of a greenwashing only. But what is written over there? 0% what? Yes. Do you really think after drinking it up? Try to search about it, then come back to me. Yes. It is just good for your mind that, okay, when you're consuming and you're not feeling guilty about it, it's just that. You're not feeling. But what sort of alternative they do have? That is also bad for your health. The better way is to actually have the original one only. Then the problem is but it don't have something like which are not doing. And secondly, but it depends upon how much quantity you are taking. Right. All of that has been given on the somebody who is having only once in a blue moon. They are not going to have those repercussions. Right. This is for somebody who is regularly taking it. Habitual people. Right. Yeah. True. That obviously, because the kind of they do have the carbon dioxide inside them. Do you know that for the fizz? And when you open that, it comes out, and then it's not good. Actually, we used to like the idea of having it when we were in our childhoods, but now when we are becoming aware, we are getting to know it. I think that's good. That's why you are what? But that is needed. In fact, that has been prescribed by one of the famous doctor of India, and he's a liver specialist, by the way. So he says that one black coffee you should have daily. That is very good. Right, all the way we have come to the different topic. We'll have a discussion on this, and this is also important, by the way, in today's scenario. Right. Okay. So we were discussing about COP, right? So conference of parties that happened. So now we had NDCs, right? Nationally determined contributions, wherein one area we are having the discussion of Paris Agreement. This is one of the I would say, the best conference of parties, because the objectives that were delivered, if the people got impressed by it, and the countries actually participated well in that. It is legally binding, right? Next is you are having your COP20, COP20, these all COP, recent one, COP30, COP29, COP27, where we have talked about loss and damage one. So superficially, I'm just trying to introduce this topic, although we'll go into the detail. I'll talk about all these COPs in detail, what were the objectives, what happened in that, where it took place, all of that, right? So these are important. Now, next is when you're talking about the climate change, you also do remember about the sustainable development goals. So what development goal they are targeting to? For example, this obviously UNFCCC, they are targeting to which sustainable development goal? There are 17 sustainable development goals that we are having, right? Okay, so all of this are important. For example, if I talk about Sustainable Development Goal 13, that is related to your, again, climate change, right? So you should know that, for example, if I'm talking about ocean acidification or something related to that, and there's a body for that, right? This particular, because it's related to ocean, etc. So what Sustainable Development Goal we are having for the oceans? For the marine life, basically the life under the water and life on the land, etc. For all of that, we are having a different SDGs, right? Okay. So coming back to the topic now, we are introducing the topic international climate change organizations and initiatives. Right down. International. This is specifically for the climate change only. Always remember, only for climate change. Climate change. International climate change organizations and initiatives. Right? Okay. So write down Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is the United Nations body. It is the United Nations body for accessing the science. For accessing the science related to climate change. For accessing the science related to climate change. It was established in 1988. It was established in 1988 by United Nations Environmental Program and WMO, which is your World Meteorological Organization, which is your World Meteorological Organization, right? So what is the purpose? What is the purpose of IPCC? What is the purpose of IPCC? क्या purpose है? Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. What is the purpose? Every time they do submit a report, that report holds a lot of importance, because that is one of the report that is taken, a lot of scientists, a lot of other people from the meteorological department, they take a cue from it, and they try to build their own policies. A lot of even governments of the various countries, they try to take a cue and hint from all of this and try to formulate their policies. Now the point is, it is also important why, and you will be very surprised to know the researchers that we are having, they are not having their, I mean, they don't, this third party researchers that they are having to work for them, right? So this is what they do a kind of a research, they bring in the report. For example, IPCC got the report of this thing, for example, the climate change, etc. Obviously they have to do that, particularly in that they talked about the vortex, polar vortex, right? How it is detrimental. They have talked about the various, for example, zone hole. They have talked about this. So various things they have talked, and even the glaciers melting, right? They have given the data that this is what happening, and this is going to be very detrimental, and it's eye-opening for a lot of people when they read their report. So IPCC is the one who is trying to bringing what the realities through their report. They try to put it in a public domain so everybody can read. Although the reports are so big that you cannot read, but definitely just is easily you can get through that, right? So the people who are working under them are the researchers, etc. So write down intergovernmental panel. Just see, have you written or not? Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is United Nations body for accessing the science related to climate change. Established कब हुआ था 1988 में, and by UNEP, which is your United Environmental Program, and WMO, which is your World Meteorological Organization. ठीक है? Now write on the purpose. Write on the purpose of this: to provide clear scientific knowledge, to provide clear scientific knowledge of climate change, to provide clear scientific knowledge of climate change, right? Okay, write on next. All member nations of United Nations, membership में लिखेंगे, all member nations of United Nations can join IPCC only. So all members of the United Nations can join IPCC. Write down the functions. Write down the functions. The main objective of IPCC is to review and assess. The main function of IPCC is to review and assess the most current scientific, technical and socio-economic information on climate change. Right? Write on the key reports of IPCC. Write on the key report. Write on. Write on the first report on this. Likhiye. It came out in 1990. First report of IPCC came out in 1990. And the subject of this report was, the report projected that if GHG emissions continued, at the current rate / business as usual, the global mean temperature would increase by, the global rate, that's it, itna hi kafi hai, the global mean temperature would increase by, the global mean temperature would increase by 2 degrees. The global mean temperature would increase by 2 degrees Celsius. The global mean temperature would increase by 2 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial level, compared to pre-industrial level, compared to pre-industrial level, compared to pre-industrial level, write down, by 2025 and 4 degrees Celsius by 22nd century, 2100. Right, on 1995, second report came up. In 1995, second report came up. And this report was a subject. Basically, this report, and because of this report, Kyoto Protocol, there were many objectives which have been taken from here because they got a reality check that what is happening. Write down. Revised projection for global temperature rise to 3 degrees Celsius. उन्होंने और डरा दिया कि 2 नहीं 3 हो सकता है, right? ये revised projections से उनके global temperatures, these were the estimations about that to what level temperature could rise, right? So it could rise by 2-3 degrees Celsius and sea level rise to 50 centimeter by 2100. This report was the basis for Kyoto Protocol. This report was the basis for Kyoto Protocol. Write down. Very important. IPCC does not conduct its own research. IPCC, they do not actually conduct their own report. They do not conduct their own research. And they are not involved in direct climate observations. And they are not involved in direct climate observation. They rely on data. It relies on data provided by thousands of scientists around the world. Thousands of scientists around the world. Okay, the very important one that we are moving towards is UNFCCC, which has been there. I was talking about this only. This is one of the most important convention on climate change right now. अच्छा, कैसे adopt हुआ था, कहाँ हुआ था? Let me just give you a brief on that. So, UNFCCC, basically it started, there was the Earth Summit which started in 1992, right? This Earth Summit took place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, right? And people gather over there. Before that, we had a meeting in 1972. It was known as the Stockholm Conference, where it was the first meeting wherein all the countries participated. It was the first meeting wherein all the countries participated to discuss about the climate change and the repercussions which could happen, right? So this happened. After this in this conference, even former Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi also took participation in this one. Then in 1992, Earth Summit happened, and this Earth Summit is also known with the name of known with other names too. For example, Rio Summit, Earth Summit, Agenda 21, and it happened in Brazil. Therein we have decided that we should definitely have something on the climate change. So we came out with UNFCCC. After that, something to we have to bring in for the desertification which is happening, the land degradation. So we came up with UNCCD, and there has to be something on biodiversity degradation. So we came up with UNCBD, right? UNFCCC CCC, UNCCD, and UNCBD. So all three were the important highlights of this meeting. Right? It got enforced in 1994. We adopted here, but enforcement was done in 1994, and after that, we started having our meetings. Right? So the first thing is you have to write down about how we came up with the idea of UNFCCC, what happened, what we have discussed. So write down about UNFCCC. Write down. So that's what. Enforce or adopted में मतलब समझ लीजिए. Adopted means we were aligning with the ideas of UNFCCC. We thought that yes, this is the idea and we have to work on that. All the member countries are aligning with the objectives. But enforce means the implementation. From when we are starting this, the provisions of the UNFCCC, so that started from 1994. That is the difference between adopted and enforcement. Wherever you will find adopted means we got in line with that. We started considering it important, right? And then enforcement started 2 years later. Right on. UNFCCC was adopted on 9th May 1992. What is the date today? Yes. So it was adopted in 9th May, on 9th May 1992 and opened for signature at the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. Have I given you a detailed difference between signatory and being a signatory and ratified member? Have I given that differentiation? What do you mean when you sign the document versus when you ratify the document? What is main difference? No. Signatory doesn't mean it's not equivalent to member. Signatory means, see, whenever you will see that a person, that a particular organization, a particular country is a signatory to this, that means they do align with the objective. They do have a moral obligation towards that particular thing. For example, moral obligation means I know this is not good, so morally I will not do it, right? But by mistake, if I have done that, then not going to be any legal actions against a country or against an organization who is practicing that, just in case if they violate the rule. But point is, when the moment you become, when you, so that means what? That you are aligning with their objectives, you're aligning with the thought process. But the moment I ratify it, it means I have to be very cautious now. I cannot violate the law. The moment I violate, there are a lot of stringent penalties, a lot of legal actions could be taken. So that is what we call it as ratification. So when the moment I ratify, then only I become a member. Always remember that. Signature it's not equivalent to becoming a member. Signatory is not equivalent to becoming a member. Ratifying is equivalent to becoming a member. Sometimes it will be written as signatory member. जहाँ पे member लग गया मतलब उसने ratify कर दिया है. ठीक है? Done? और members का मतलब parties है. The conference of parties का मतलब member होता है. ठीक है? Whenever we talk in climate conventions या फिर किसी भी organization में बात करेंगे, especially with respect to international institutions, we are talking members as the parties. So do not get confused with that. बताइए. क्या सिग्नेचर? हाँ, सेम ही होगा, राइट, करेक्ट. तो अभी यहाँ पे लिखा है they signed the document. Right now, they open for signature at the United Nations. And also, yes, very important difference, that signature, that if I am a representative from India and I'm going somewhere to attend a meeting, right? There's a very important conference going on, and I do think that I'm glancing through all the clauses, and I think that it is aligning with the objectives for the greater good for the society and for the country as well. I'll sign the document. I can sign. Being a representative, I can sign. When I come back, I have to discuss with the committees, I have to discuss with the members, and then through the parliamentary procedure, it will be finally what? It will be passed that, okay, finally we are ratifying the document. Not without the parliamentary procedure, you cannot ratify it. Okay? Okay. Next, write down. Open for signature at the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, comma, also known as Earth Summit, also known as Earth Summit, comma, held from 3 to 14 June 1992. Held from 3 to 14 June.
Can you repeat from?
Sorry?
Can you repeat from this slide?
Yeah, sure. Okay, right on. UNFCC, I'm repeating from the starting, please check. UNFCCC was adopted on 9th May 1992 and open for signature at the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. On Environment and Development, comma, and also known as Earth Summit. And also known as Earth Summit, comma, held from 3rd to 14 June 1992, held from 3 June to 14 June 1992 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. In Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Full stop. UNFCCC entered into force. UNFCCC entered into force on 21st March 1994. UNFCCC entered into force on 21st March 1994, preventing dangerous human interference. Preventing dangerous human interference with the climate systems. With climate system is the ultimate aim. With the climate system is the ultimate aim of UNFCCC. And where is its secretariat? It's located in Germany. The secretariat is located in Bonn, Germany. Now, with respect to previous year questions of UPSC, for example, this time the agreement was asked. If you see the recent question paper of 2025, then particular agreement has been asked from the convention. So similarly, at least some of the articles, some of the agreements have become important. For example, Article 6 was asked in the previous one. So आपको भी ऐसे करना है, you have to go through at least some of the articles because sometimes it becomes important. I'm not saying to go through the whole document, that is not even worthy of going through. But the point is, at least you should pick up some of the points. For example, Article 1, Article 2, at least do till 5. जो भी important conventions है, right? Write down. Objective लिखिए. Article 2. The convention's ultimate objective is. Article 2, और ये बहुत important है with respect to your UPSC, write down. Article 2, write down. The convention's ultimate objective is to achieve, comma, stabilization. Its ultimate objective is to achieve, comma, stabilization of greenhouse gas concentration. Of greenhouse gas concentration. Of greenhouse gas concentration, right? Very important line, again important from the prelims point of view. UNFCCC does not have a legally binding enforcement mechanism. UNFCCC does not have a legally binding enforcement mechanism. They do not have what? Legally binding enforcement mechanism, right? Okay, what does Article 3 of UNFCCC says? UNFCCC says, write down. Article 3 says that countries are to take responsibility. Article 3 says that countries are to take responsibility countries are to take responsibilities. Countries को responsibilities लेनी है, right? Countries are to take responsibility for protecting the environment and mitigating the climate change. For protecting the environment and mitigating the climate change based on their common but differentiated responsibility. Or one of the tagline for UNCCC in fact, but differentiated responsibility based on common but differentiated responsibility. Try to put it in a box. Some problem in that. Okay, why? First of all, tell me that why it should be one of the biggest, one of the key statement given by the UNFCCC. Why? Why should be discussed as one of the most important and a key statement given by them? And another important thing apart from that, you should know in which article it has been mentioned. As I told you, the articles are now becoming very important. So you have to also look for in which particular article it has been mentioned. In Article 3, Clause 1, obviously they'll not ask in detail Clause 1 or Clause 2. But yes, Article 3 it has been mentioned in differentiated responsibility. But what is the key idea behind that? What do you understand by common but differentiated responsibility? Correct, very good. So, rightly defined that they are moving towards a common goal, they are moving towards a common objective, and objective is what? To mitigate the climate change. You have to reduce the levels of the greenhouse emissions. But yes, different people, different countries are having different responsibilities. They are the onus on them are different. But why? Because some countries are capable of doing more. Yes. Some countries are contributing to the climate change. Yeah. Like some countries have more resources. Right. More equitable idea. Yes. So she's saying that it is more of an equitable idea because they have a more of resources present, so they can put in more. But do you think any country would agree on that? Because we are having, for example, if you are having the maximum money, for example, I am the one, I am having maximum money in my bank account. So if somebody would say you should do it for a cause, I will do it obviously. But if somebody tries to say me because you are having more, you should do it more. That is the obligation, right? Do you think it's a good idea? It is because of my hard-earned money. It's because of all of that which I have. So somebody is trying to force me just because you are having, you should do it, right? Does it fit in? For example, a country that doesn't have any deserts, we have to tell them to protect because they are also emitting it. We have to protect them. Degraded lands, the idea of degradation is what? You are trying to convert a cultivable land by using it, by overutilization, you are turning into a barren land. That is what? That is sort of a desertification. I'm not talking about the deserts, arid desert, which have been already present there. But the idea is to lessen it. So the idea was that what the countries, and obviously through our metrics, also through our assessment, also we know that in the industrial revolution, the countries who have contributed a lot in the greenhouse emissions were the Western countries. When industrial revolution came up, the countries who benefited a lot out of this were European countries, Americans, right? if you talk about the United States of America, you talk about the European countries, European continent, these countries were the one who benefited a lot. Why? Because they recklessly used what? Coal. They recklessly used all the out of the fossil fuels, war and whatnot. So they have used all of this in order to make themselves what? Superpowers at that point of time. So now when they have done it, what they are doing, there are other countries who are suffering the most, because we are not the one. If you see the data, even today, USA is on the topping the list of the consumption of petrols, of all the sort of coal, fossil fuels. USA is the top consumer, right? So when they are the top consumers, when they are using it the most, and already you know that they have already contributed a lot. Now they have become developed. Everything is sorted now. They have become developed. They have the basic amenities. Everything is sorted. Now they are moving towards a culture of mitigation. And we are still in the phase of development. We are still developing. Talk about India, talk about China. China has gone a little far. They have best of the best this manufacturing setup. They have, I think they have proliferated so much that now they can challenge USA as well. So now there are a lot of countries which are still developing. Africa is one, India is one, a lot of South Indian countries, a lot of a lot of South Hemisphere Asian countries. So all of these are working a lot, right, in order to bring in more, right, to set up their manufacturing setup, to set up their secondary sector. So when they are moving towards this, now you're talking about mitigation. So this is not fair. First of all, I know that we were not that much aware in that era, in the Industrial Revolution, that this should be there. You did colonization, you did the emissions, right? Everything you have done. And now after the Industrial Revolution, when it ended, what are your thinking about? You're thinking about resource fullness. You're talking about the resource crunch is there, and now we have to protect it. Because there is a hole in the ozone layer, we have to protect it. And now the owners, the idea is coming on whom? Like, do you think both of them should contribute equally? The developing ones who are already having so much to do. They have to do better in the food. They have to do better in the shelters. They have to do better in upgrading a lot of their communities to the level 2. Then do you think that they will be able to focus on all these changes? No. So the point is, the idea was that the onus lies more on the developed countries, because they are the one who has contributed a lot in the greenhouse gas emissions. Because at that point of time, what Indians were doing? Indians were colonized now. They were colonized. All of the factories that you have even established is established by the Britishers, and that too for what? For your own benefits. You wanted to sell them to the Britishers. You want to sell them to their own countries, right? Profit maximization was done by you. You were the one who were promoting the capitalism, right? So at that point of time, you have done your part. Now the point is, this is not fair that now you're telling us that you have to contribute equally as the Western countries. So that is not possible. So that's why we are having what? The developed countries having more responsibility towards bringing the climate change mitigations versus the developing countries. And let me tell you the fact, the countries who are getting most impacted by them are small island nations. Your small island developing states, which we call it as SIDS in the short form. A lot of times you will find that in newspapers as well. So basically they are small island countries which are present over there. They are submerging. If you talk about Vanuatu, this is one of the islands which is present. And there are other islands also in Micronesia, Polynesia. They are drowning. Why? Because the glaciers are melting, and when the glaciers will melt, the sea level will rise, and hence they will not be able to survive. A lot of diseases can spread because of this. They have to migrate. A lot of migration will take place from these areas, coastal areas, and also from the island states. So who has to protect this? The countries have to, the developed countries has to do this. Although Trump, he did not agree to it, he did not align with this idea. So in 2015 also, when his term was there, he did not align with it, and that's why he was not a member of UNFCCC. When Joe Biden came, he again became a part of it, and when Trump came, and he did not align with it the idea of UNFCCC, what he says is that I do not agree with that the developed countries have contributed in it. I think we all are equally responsible if there is any sort of climate change thing do exist. Even if you do not believe in, he does not believe in that. He says that this is a climatic pattern which happens. Sometimes the temperature rises so much and sometimes he says that then if the climate change is happening, then why you're saying that later on we will have the glaciation period, right? Everything will freeze, etc. So he says that this idea is a trash and I do not buy this idea. So this is what Trump has said. So now we have to keep moving towards our goal, right? So these days we have been talking in COP27, we talked about loss and damage fund, wherein we are saying that you have to give the damage and the loss which has been done to the small island states, small island developing states. You are the one who is responsible, give that. We have been talking about the $100 billion. Now that amount has been increased to $300 billion. I don't know how much money they have actually, the corpus they have actually fill in that, but yes, this is what the benchmark that we are taking. Okay? So this is what. Now the point is, coming back to the topic, that yes, in Kyoto Protocol, which happened, कब हुआ था Kyoto Protocol? COP3, जब third meeting हुई थी COPs की, मतलब members की, हाँ, 1997, right? So they have divided into two parts, NXA and NXB. NXA में क्या था? You're all the developed countries, and NXB में it was उनके लिए binding था और हमारे लिए binding नहीं था, ठीक है? So write down, देखिए, write down. UNFCCC is a Rio Convention. Write down more about it. UNFCCC and the Rio Convention लिखिए. हाँ हाँ, Article 3 के बाद. UNFCCC and Rio Convention. UNFCCC is a Rio Convention, one of the two open for signature. One of the two open for signature. One of the two open for signature. I'll tell you, one of the two who. At the Rio Earth Summit in 1992. In 1992. Its other two sister Rio conventions are. Second is UN Convention on Biological Diversity, which is UNCBD. UN Convention on Biological Diversity. Third is Convention to combat. Third is Convention to combat desertification. Convention to combat desertification. It is in this context. Okay, I'll repeat. UN Convention on Biological Diversity, which is UNCBD. And third is the Convention to combat desertification. UNCCD, right? UN Convention to combat desertification. Next, write down. First, we'll discuss about 1995, wherein the first COP has taken place, COP1. This is the first meeting which happened, which is your COP1, 1995, COP1, Berlin, Germany. Where it happened? In Berlin, Germany. This is the first country. This is the first country to be chosen for the first meeting. Write down. Establishment of processes. Establishment of processes. Establishment of processes for binding commitments, establishment of processes for binding commitments, establishment of establishment of processes for binding commitments for developing countries. For developing countries. Next is Berlin Conference, which laid foundation for Berlin Conference, which laid foundation for Kyoto Protocol. Berlin Conference, which laid foundation for Kyoto Protocol. We'll not do all, we'll do some of the most important ones. Okay. Right on. COP3, which is Kyoto Protocol, 1997. Right? COP3, which is Kyoto Protocol, 1997. Right down. Likhiye. Adoption of the Kyoto Protocol, which entered into force. Right down. Adoption of Kyoto Protocol, which entered into force. Adoption of Kyoto Protocol, which entered into force. Write down. In 2005, with Russian Federation ratification, to the Kyoto Protocol. Extremely important protocol which I have taken is your COP21, Paris, France. Your Paris Agreement has gotten there. Now it took place in 2015. Which COP? COP21. 2015 COP21, write down. A legally binding international treaty. It was the first legally binding, okay? Among all the meetings that have happened, this is the first treaty that was legally binding. A legally binding international treaty on climate change. A legally binding international treaty on climate change. A legally binding international treaty on climate change, write down. Historic agreement to limit global warming. Historic agreement to bring global warming. Historic agreement to bring global warming to 2 degrees Celsius, to 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial level, above pre-industrial level, above pre-industrial level, with efforts to limit it, to 1.5 degrees Celsius, with the efforts to limit it, with the efforts to limit it 1.5 degrees Celsius. ठीक है? Write down. The countries to implement nationally determined contributions on a 5-year scale. the countries to implement nationally determined contributions on a 5-year scale. Matlab that this Paris Agreement is bringing what? Paris Agreement is bringing a nationally determined contribution. And this nationally determined contribution is having a time period of 5 years. That you have to complete your objectives in 5 years. The countries have to meet their objectives in 5 years, right? So this is called nationally determined contribution. Nation only will determine it, okay? The amount, to the level they can fulfill it, they will only determine it, they will submit the report, and then after they will work on this and how to complete the objectives within the span of 5 years. Now we'll discuss the recent one. I think the most important one, then after that is 2021, 2022. All of this now becomes important. The recent one, because it can be asked from here. You can write down, take your time, write down from here. Paris. नाम ही Paris Agreement. हाँ? France. Paris Agreement हुआ था वहाँ पे. I'm giving you 2 minutes break. How was your farewell? Nice. Okay, what did you do little extra that day? What did you do different little extra that day? Any sort of special? No, in this college only. Okay. In which department you are in? Okay. Hmm.
It was nice. They really like video
Mm.
and dance. He also dance.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it was nice. It was really fun for it. It was very enjoyable.
Mm.
400 people, so it was on a smaller scale.
Mhm.
Then we have graduation.
Oh, nice. Where? In the college? Okay.
It's like a
Mm.
wedding.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
completely decorated.
Mm. When a wedding in the morning, like in the afternoon, or you had a function in the evening? Okay. Okay. Okay.
It started around 6.
Mhm.
Then 9.
Okay. Okay.
So then we did dinner
Mm.
and the college is decorated, and that's when I started that.
Mhm.
We did a lot.
Mhm.
Just dance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So every arrangement was done in college only. Nice. Okay. So now coming back to the COP26, write down, it held in Glasgow. So there was a COP which was supposed to take place in 2020 also, but it couldn't take place because of the COVID reasons, right? So write down, COP26 held in Glasgow. The outcome of COP26 we'll discuss now from COP26, right? And in the homework, I'll give you COP30, and COP30, I'll particularly discuss it with you in the next class, okay? Write down. The outcome of COP26, the Glasgow Climate Pact. Glasgow. Climate Pact. लिखिए. Is the fruit of intense negotiation among. It's the fruit of. It's the fruit of. It's the fruit of intense negotiation among almost 200 countries for over 2 weeks. It was the fruit of intense negotiation among almost 200 countries over 2 weeks. Key outcomes, write down. Glasgow Break Agenda. That was the first key outcome. Glasgow Break Agenda. It has been approved by India along with 41 countries. It has been approved by India along with 41 countries. The idea is to focus on collaborative efforts. The idea is to focus on collaborative efforts. The idea is to focus on collaborative efforts to accelerate the development and deployment. To accelerate the development and deployment. The idea is to accelerate the development and deployment of clean technologies and sustainable solutions. Of clean technologies and sustainable solutions. That was a key outcome, right? So now we have to come, so the question which was asked, I was referring to it, Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, okay? Now we'll come back to it. So write down, key objectives written of this, done? Okay. Now write down, Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. This was also one of the objective in the COP26, which was discussed in this as well. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, carbon markets and voluntary international cooperation. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, write down. Carbon markets and voluntary international cooperations. Write down under it. Parties agreed to the carryover carbon markets and voluntary international cooperation. Write down. Parties agreed to the carryover. Parties agreed to the carryover of carbon credits generated under Kyoto Protocol since 2013. Generated under the Kyoto Protocol since 2013. Next, write down COP27. लिखिए COP27. This was introduced in, write down, this was introduced in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Sharm el-Sheikh, you can see the spelling. Egypt. Can you see the spelling? I'll write it again. It was COP27, right? One of the key objective of COP27 was loss and damage fund. Although we had a discussion of loss and damage fund, this is not the first time we were having a discussion, although the kind of objectives that we have bringing, the provisions that we have bringing, this was the first time, but earlier also we had a discussion in Warsaw. Right? In Warsaw, we already had a discussion of this. Okay, write down. Okay. Loss and damage fund. Loss and damage fund. The fund was agreed upon at COP27. The fund was agreed upon in COP27. Full stop. The fund was first proposed in 1990s. The fund was first proposed in 1990s by the Alliance of Small Island States. By the Alliance of Small Island States. By the Alliance of Small Island States. Run. Write down. The fund first proposed in 1990s by the Alliance of Small Island States, gained support from China and G77. Now write down. Loss and damage fund refers to the negative consequences. Loss and damage fund refers to the negative consequences that arise from. It refers to negative consequences that arise from unavoidable risk of, that arises from unavoidable risk from the climate change. Like unavoidable risk from climate change, like sea level rise, glaciers melting, floods, sea level rise, glaciers melting, floods, prolonged heat waves, desertification, full stop. The next discussion they had was Mars, M-A-R-S, Mars. Full form of Mars is, write down, Methane Awareness and Response System. Methane Awareness and Response System. Right. Write down. The Methane Action and Remote Sensing Initiative. The Methane Action and Remote Sensing Initiative was introduced at UNFCCC 27th conference. It was introduced at 20. It was introduced, write down, at United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is your UNFCCC 27th Conference of Parties, which is your COP 27. Right? You missed it? Right on next, COP 28. Where it happened? UAE, right? COP 28. We'll have a discussion on that. What are the provisions? What are the objectives which have been admitted in that? COP 28 took place in UAE. Write down. Okay, where? Dubai. Write on the key outcomes. Conclusion of the first global stock take. Conclusion on the first global stock take. The conclusion on the first global stock take happened here. Write down, I'll tell you what are the stock takes. Write down. First global stock take of the Paris Agreement took place assessing global progress towards 1.5 degrees Celsius. Assessing global progress towards 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. The stocktake demonstrated that the world is off track and the urgent actions are required to close the gap. Right? So first idea for when first stocktake happened and when it was discussed basically in COP 21, where in Paris Agreement we had a discussion and it was finally concluded in the COP 28. Right? So what is the idea of the stocktake? They're telling that the world is off the track and there has to be some climate change mitigation has to happen earlier, and they will look at the matrix that whether they have improved in that or not. Right? So write down. Next, loss and damage fund. We moved a bit level 2 in loss and damage fund. So the discussion which was happening, because we adopted loss and damage fund in the previous COP 27 held in Egypt. Now we have tried to quantify it, that how much developed countries will be providing to the developing countries. That number was introduced in this particular discussion. Right down. Established at COP 28 to provide financial support to the developing countries, to provide the financial support to the developing countries suffering from climate related damage. Since the adoption of the decision, an amount of around USD 700 million has been pledged. An amount of 700 million has been pledged by UAE. Has been pledged by several countries in UAE. Next point. The United Arab Emirates has announced its commitment. The United Arab Emirates has announced its commitment of USD 100 million. USD 100 million. USD 100 million, right? Okay. Now, can we have a discussion on this? There were other initiatives which were taken, but this was the most important one. All right. So there's India also had given its contribution. They also discussed about one of the important thing, which is Global River Cities Alliance. So they talked about how much rivers are important for the ecosystem and how we have to save it. So Global River, it was led, just write on one line. Global River Cities Alliance. Cities Alliance. Cities. One city and cities, many cities, right? Alliance led by National Mission for Clean Ganga, Global River Cities Alliance led by National Mission for Clean Ganga under Ministry of Jal Shakti, Government of India. Right? It's a unique alliance covering 275 plus. It is a unique alliance covering 275 plus global river cities in 11 countries. It's a unique alliance covering 275 plus global cities in 11 countries, comma, international funding agencies, and knowledge management partners. Okay. Now read it. If you have any doubt, let me know. Then we'll start with COP 29. COP 29 held in Azerbaijan, Baku, right? I mean COP 30. You have to prepare COP 30, and then I'll also have a good detailed discussion of COP 30, but I would give it this to you so that you can also go through all of this, because you have got a base that how you have to prepare all the COPs and what we have to see. So first we have to see what are the main objectives which has been highlighted in that. Try to do them in detail, because there are many other things also which has been discussed. I'm not discussing all the objectives, otherwise then what will be the importance, right? So you have to figure out, you have to filter out the content that this is more important, this is not, with respect to the UPSC examination, right? Yes, online students, do you have any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay. We'd like to take down one PYQ. Take it. Okay, write down the question, very easy one. Because the questions can come on the reports as well, but this is starting from the very easy one question. Write down, which organization publishes global climate reports? Which organization publishes global climate report? Global climate report, right? Write down. WHO, A, WHO, B, UNESCO, C, IPCC, or D, IMF, or D, IMF, or D, IMF. Answer? Correct. Now write down next. Okay, this is little tricky. Write down. Which of the following best describes legal nature? Which of the following best describes legal nature of the Paris Agreement? Legal nature of Paris Agreement under UNFCCC. UNFCCC. First, it is entirely voluntary and non-binding. B, it is a legally binding emission reduction. It is a legally binding emission reduction for all countries. C, binding procedural obligations with nationally determined substantive targets, and D, binding only on Annex 1 countries. Which one of the following is correct? Yes. First statement is entirely voluntary and non-binding. B is legally binding emissions reduction targets for all countries. C is binding procedural obligations with nationally determined substantive targets, and D is binding only Annex 1 countries. That's it.
Only one is correct.
Only one is correct. C. So you are saying C is correct. Okay. Correct. Why?
Verification.
Okay. Correct. ठीक है. Okay, this one is again a bit tricky. Likhiye. Which one of the following correctly differentiates? Which one of the following correctly differentiates adaptation from mitigation? Which one of the following differentiates adaptation from mitigation? in climate governance? A is adaptation addresses causes. Adaptation addresses causes, comma, mitigation addresses impacts. Mitigation addresses impacts. B, adaptation and mitigation are identical concepts. C, adaptation reduces vulnerability. Adaptation reduces vulnerability, comma, mitigation reduces greenhouse gas emissions. And D, adaptation applies only to developed countries. Yes.
Adaptation.
Yes, adaptation.
How is it adaptation or adoption?
It's written adaptation over there. I don't know why they've written this. Let me check. Yes, but why they've written that? No, adaptation. Hmm? A option, adaptation addresses causes, mitigation addresses impacts. What do you mean adaptation? Why can't you relate it to this thing? You're adapting to something, right? So don't you think that mitigation addresses causes? Whenever you are in dilemma, try to just reverse the statement, right? If you reverse the statement,
And I don't adaptation, then what happens if adaptation?
no, so basically they are trying to differentiate adaptation from mitigation. Mitigation means what?
Adaptation.
In the terms of climate change only, no? In terms of climate change only. For example, if I am the one, like we used to live in the places, for example, there are people who are living in extreme hot also, there are people who are living in extreme cold also. Both are adapted to their own environments, right? But it is likely impossible for the person who is from Delhi or from India, particularly India, to go and they can live very easily initially in initial days in the polar region, and will be very difficult for the people who are coming from polar region to live. They cannot survive in tropical regions, right? So this is what their bodies have adapted to the different climate, right? So this is what, for example, I can survive in this pollution, but there are people coming from the other areas, polluted free areas, where they cannot survive even for a minute over here because AQI level is so high. So what do you understand by that? Their body have adapted to a different environment. So adaptation is something that you are getting used to it. Now it is becoming you're habitual of it. So that is what adaptation is. So when something, for example, there are countries who are earthquake prone. For them, it is a everyday routine that the earthquake has to come at this time. Whether small or big magnitude, that is a different story altogether, but it will come. So now they adapted to it. So similarly with the climate change also, they're adapted. So that is what they're asking, and many questions in UPSC comes like that. Just like you are confused right now, people will get confused, and that too, don't have to attempt one question, you have to attempt 100 questions, right? And imagine out of all the questions, this question comes before you. Everybody will go blank, right? But you have to do your best. You have to understand what the examiner is trying to ask in this. So adaptation means, the mitigation means you are trying to reduce the cause. You don't have to adapt to it. You have to reduce whatever is bringing the climatic conditions up. समझ आ रहा है? Huh? So adaptation, first statement is saying adaptation addresses causes. That's true. That adaptation, does it address causes? For example, something is bothering you and you are getting adapted to it. And thus, the purpose is getting served by that. Is any sort of purpose is served by that? You're getting adapted. वो तो वही है ना. It is still rising. You will get again adapted to it. Temperature will again rise. You will get again adapted to it. आपका body, you are bringing resilience in your body to fight with a cause which is already there, and in fact it is intensifying, and because of you, because you are not taking the exact measures. So the point is that mitigation addresses impacts and adaptation addresses cause. Is it actually addressing the cause? No. First statement is wrong. So B is adaptation and mitigation are identical concept. How can they be identical? Because when you have to differentiate, the statement is itself contradicting the question. Because question is asking to differentiate between the both, and statement is saying the two are same. So doesn't make any sense. Coming back to say adaptation reduces vulnerability and mitigation reduces greenhouse gases. And D is adaptation applies to only developed countries. Again, doesn't make any sense. It applies to only developed countries. It is not about greenhouse gases, but can it be applied over here? Because you have to choose the best. Because all the statements which are coming here, they are not fitting in. So all are absurd. So one statement which is making sense to me is C. Why? Just read the statement again. Adaptation reduces vulnerability. When I am getting adapted to anything which is extreme, external environment, external factors which are there, which are going to the peak, but my body is still building in the resilience just because I am adapting to it. So this is what I am reducing the vulnerability of myself, right? So this is what. So adaptation reduces vulnerability. For example, there is a scorching heat outside. They are saying that the temperature will rise because of the El Nino effect. This is going to be a super El Nino year. So what I'll do, I'll try to take all the preventive measures. I'll try to put sunscreen, whatever I can do for myself. I'll try to eat good, so that, and I'll try to hydrate my body. All of this can be done. So this is what I'm reducing the vulnerability. But am I fighting with the cause? No. I'm making my body adapt to the external factors, which could be of maybe they can bringing lot of repercussions, right? So this is adaptation. Adaptation reduces vulnerability, that is true, and mitigation reduces greenhouse gas effect. I know that mitigation you're talking that it's not applying to only greenhouse gas emissions, but yes, here in this statement, out of all the statement that we're having, this is the best statement we could choose out of 4. Okay? You yourself read other 3 statements. अब अपने आप पढ़ के देखिए एक बार और हर possible scenario में लगा के देखिए उसको. Then you will understand what I'm trying to tell you. Do it by yourself. मैं कहने से समझ नहीं आएगा. It will look like a command coming from somebody. Not understanding? Still having problem? ठीक है, ऐसे क्वेश्चंस आएंगे आपके कॉम्प्रिहेंशन में भी आते हैं सीसेट में, wherein every statement will look like it's correct, and those questions are ambiguous questions. I think I will also consider this question as one of the ambiguous question. Why? Because then you're not able, because you have a lot of other factors also. You're trying to justify this statement from your viewpoint, and rest of the people will also do. But point is, you have to follow only UPSC official key, and then you can do nothing about it, right? like you said, that is why it is just pertaining to greenhouse gas emissions. Mitigation could be applied to anything, right? So everybody can there have their viewpoint, and they can put with that perspective they can mark the answer. But the only answer key that we have to follow is the UPSC official key. So these questions are called ambiguous. So that's your call. If you're having other areas very stronger than this, then you can skip these questions if you want to. But if you think that you should attempt, then that's your call. Okay. Okay. Now, should we talk about COP29 now? Right? Okay, write down Baku. Azerbaijan, Baku. Becoming a very famous place for tourists as well these days. All these places. Write down. COP29 to the UNFCCC was held in Baku. It was held in Baku, Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan. The conference theme was accelerating progress. The conference theme was accelerating progress towards climate goal, through innovative solutions, goal, through innovative solutions, financial support, and partnerships. Right on the first goal, again, they also discussed about reducing the methane emissions, just like in COP28. Right down. Declaration of reducing methane emissions. Declaration on reducing methane emissions. Write down. Over 30 countries, including US, UK, Germany, and UAE, endorsed COP29. Declaration on reducing methane from organic waste. Why this is important? Because India did not sign it, right? India was not agreeing on this. Why? Because they are trying to focus on what? Methane reduction from organic matter. How do we produce methane from organic matter? Biogas. And it is considered as one of the organic way. It's considered as one of the renewable source of energy, wherein you are trying to put all the organic waste in a pit, and then for a long period of time you will leave it as it is, and with oxygen or without oxygen it will decompose, and then there will be a release of methane gas. So the idea was to reduce the methane emissions from organic matter, and India was not agreeing to the idea. Next is focus areas. 2000, just now, 2024. November. Okay, write down. Focus area. The declaration targets methane emissions from organic waste, which contributes 20% of global emissions, declaration targets methane emissions from organic waste, which contributes 20% of global methane. The 5 priority areas identified as NDC, which is your nationally determined contributions. NDC, next regulations, next data collection and monitoring, next finance for methane reduction and monitoring, next is finance for methane reduction. Then something that COP29 has talked about is indigenous peoples and local community. They talked about indigenous people and local community. They talked about indigenous people and local communities. So all of this can be asked. For the prelims, COP30 is important, COP29 is also equally important, COP27, COP28, all the 4 COPs are important. Always remember from the year your COP is there, like for this is a trial, right? It happened in this, now it's happening here, and then it will happen in another country next year. So all of this will become important for the UPSC. After 2 years, yeah. Okay, okay, write down. लिखिए. You're talking about meeting which happens, right? No, it takes place every year. So COP 24 also we had, and that is what we have written. No, I think you have missed it. It happened in 23, COP 28. It happened in 24, COP 29. It happened in 2025, COP 30. It happened in 2022, which is your COP 27. Every year हो रहा है, ठीक है? Write on next. I was thinking about this one, methane you're talking, because it was discussed then also. In the previous COPs also we had a discussion of methane, remember? Just look at the objectives of COP27 देखिए आप. COP28 देखिए आप. Okay, next write down. Indigenous people and local community. COP29 reinforced the role of indigenous people and local community in climate change. Next, they talked about gender and climate change. This was also very new and important. Gender and climate change. And with that respect, they came up with LIMA. There was a thing that I have to discuss over here with the name of LIMA, LIMA. What was it? Write down. Write down. LIMA work program on gender. LIMA work program on gender. It was decided that they will extend. It was decided that they would extend LIMA work program for 10 years, emphasizing the need for gender responsive, climate policies. Right on next. There was a new climate finance goal also discussed. New finance. Right down. There was a discussion on new climate finance goal. There was a discussion on new climate finance goal. Right now. First goal is a major breakthrough at COP29. A major breakthrough at COP29 was new collective quantified goal. New collective quantified goal on climate finance, which aims to triple climate finance to USD 300 billion. It's too much. They tried to triple the climate finance to USD 300 billion. 300 billion by 2035, up from the previous target of USD 100 million. USD 100 million. Sorry, billion. USD 100 billion. Okay. Write down. Developed countries are expected to lead this effort. Developed countries are expected to lead this effort, comma, but there is a broader call. But there is a broader call to mobilize 1.3 trillion annually. But there is a bigger call to mobilize $1.3 trillion annually by 2035. And from where? Are they supposed to take it from the public? No, that is not going to suffice, right? You have to take it from the private and the public sources as well. ठीक है, sources क्या रहेंगे आपके दोनों? Sources has to be private and public both. Right? That's all for today. You can go through the COP30 also meanwhile, and we'll have a good discussion on COP30 in the next class. So write down the question. Write down the key objectives of COP30. Write down, this is the main question. Write down the key objectives of COP30, trying to simplify it. Okay. Write down all the objectives. When did it take place? Area, location, everything you have to mention. In the class, you have to practice. Give it to you right now. अभी होगी. It's just that you have to write all of this in points, otherwise you're supposed to start. Also, having seen number of classes tomorrow, also same number of classes we have. Today you're having how many? How many are left? Anything you need to ask?